Hello and welcome to another Dragonstorm Studios video. And today we're going to draw a flower. Now the flower I get asked to draw most often is a rose, so we're going to go with that. But I call this a video about making flowers because you can use the same technique to draw any flower really. And what I mean by that is that I'm looking for basic shapes. You can take any flower in existence and break it down into smaller, easier component parts. So the first thing I'm going to look at when I draw a rose is the middle. And I start with kind of like a guitar pick sort of shape there. And I'm going to draw an oval, like an egg sort of shape around it. And it almost looks like a cartoon eye looking down. And this is the central portion of that rose shape, and it won't look good until it's finished, like most of the drawings that we do here. I'm then going to tilt the camera up a little bit. I'm then going to draw a circular shape around it. And this circular shape is actually not going to survive to the end of the drawing. It's just to kind of give me a place to extend the petals out to. So again, it's really reinforcing that eye sort of shape. It actually almost reminds me a little bit of Mike Wazowski from Monsters, Inc. But in that guitar pick, I'm going to then draw a circle at the top and another kind of circle on the inside. And some of you more astute viewers who are visually minded might already kind of see where this is going. And I can almost draw like a spiral sort of shape coming out from there. From that, I'm going to just kind of think of lettuce leaves, like the, I guess, overlapping sort of shape of lettuce that you might see as you are making a salad, perhaps. So I'm gonna kind of just draw these little shapes. They're kind of amorphous shapes, and again, this will vary because the picture I'm looking at off of for this rose is one angle in one particular flower. So the shape might vary. I'm kind of looking at all the different areas that kind of come off from there. So I'm going to just keep that same sort of shape up on the outer edge of that egg that I drew, extending to the maximum width of that outer circle. So by the time I'm done, I'm going to erase that outer circle and just have a whole bunch of these lettucey, leafy little bits. So I'll do that for a moment and come back in just a sec. All right, so with those lines refined, I'm going to erase my guideline around the edges. I didn't want the petals to extend too far away from the central area. So the farthest one I think is, well, it's one of these two perhaps, but I can get rid of that guideline now. I'm then going to add in the stem, and because of the angle, I can't see a whole lot of it. And then there are some petal-like shapes that extend underneath the rose as well. And I can kind of just make out one of those. So I'll put maybe that little bit over there. Maybe I can see another one over here. Perhaps I can just make that up as I go. And we've got the stem extending out from below the petals there. And we'll put in maybe a thorn here, and the leaves of a rose are kind of serrated. So they've got this mostly diamond shape, and the edges have a serration to them. So I'm going to put more work into that perhaps afterwards. At this point, I'm going to start working from the inside out on the shading, and it's going to be darkest where the light is not able to penetrate inside the shapes here, and it's going to slowly get lighter as it reaches an area where the light might be able to hit a little more readily. So I'm just going to keep that up. Again, darker in the crevices and crannies and nooks, and getting lighter as it gets out from there. So I can play around with that and just keep going, extending that as I go. Just going to zoom in a little more so you can kind of see that there. Just going from dark to lighter. And then I'll take my blending stomp, which is that stick of paper which has been rolled into a stump, and just kind of ease that shading, blending it in, making it a little more subtle, a bit more of a gradient from light to dark. We'll continue that process until our rose looks a bit more realistic. We'll be back in a moment. And by adding the extra value change of light and dark, it really gives a sense of depth in the work. You can almost imagine that these petals have all unfurled over the course of several hours during the day as the sunlight came out and began hitting it. So just kind of working from the middle and outwards, I know that's kind of counterintuitive to a lot of what I've talked about before, but I find that if I just go left to right as usual, being right-handed, I find that I sometimes lose track of where my light source is and where the darkness would be. So I just find it easier to start in the middle and kind of swirl outward. And that works for me. A lot of it has to do with just observing the different tones though. So keep that in mind as you work and try this out yourself. I also worked on the serrated edges of the leaf, and we'll see how this turns out as I finish up the petals. All right, and as I add a shadow beneath the petal here, being cast onto the stem, I'm just going to be aware of the lightening slowly, the lessening of pressure as I go down from dark to a medium tone to a light. And then I'm going to want a little bit more dark on one side than the other. And we end up with a pretty nice looking rose at this point. I noticed a lot of pictures had some imperfections in the flowers as well. So they've got, a couple places where there's some little indents or curled up parts of the petals, and you can certainly draw to the specifications of whatever subject you're working off of, but just be aware of the light and the dark involved. There's not a lot of actual white in the picture, just some areas which are of lighter tones. And that's where the light's hitting the petals more directly. I'm going to fill in the leaf here. It would be obviously a nice dark green in real life if it was in color. So the tone will be a nice, mid to dark gray. And then I can add in some of the veins that you see where all the chlorophyll gets pumped. And I can do that by just taking an eraser and getting rid of some of the shading to create those veiny sort of shapes. And that'll look really nice when it's finished. So a bit more polishing is required, and then we're just about done the drawing of our flower. All right, and with a few extraneous vines in the background, some branch of some sort in there as well, and the darkness in the background again, just to kind of add some more contrast to the work, make the layered parts pop out more, and you get this beautiful image of the rose. And I'm hoping that that is something that might inspire you to try drawing flowers yourself. There's lots of different permutations and variations out there in terms of flora, so try it out. Give it a shot and see how it turns out for you. Hope you enjoyed that video and have a fantastic day.